All right, we are back with Stephen Meade, currently in Santa Monica, and we don't have enough time to tell everybody where you've been recently, but Monaco was one of them, so that's enough of a taste of that. But Stephen, you have a diverse background. You talked about it a little bit, starting out in college. You certainly have an entrepreneurial streak. You've gone from retail to different tech businesses. You're a speaker, you're an author early on, and you're, in my mind, assisting people and companies to make a difference. Share with us a little bit of how you've evolved in your career, and are you at the point where this is what you wanted to be when you grew up?
You know, I spent 6 years in financial services, and during that time, I read probably 300 to 350 books on sales, psychology, motivation, and as a sales trainer, you learn a lot of introspective things about yourself. So where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? How to build teams? And what I also learned is I build what I call a lifestyle criteria. So I've got a list of about 12 things that I want my life to look like at the end. A personal net worth, what I want to do with income for other people, the kinds of people I want to hang around, what value I like to provide to others. And every company I start has to give me the chance to have at least 9 of those 12 outcomes. If it has less than 9, it's not even of interest to me. Like we talk about being a book author. I could be a book author again. The end of the road of me being a book author doesn't give me enough lifetime satisfaction, so I don't even try it.
Right.
And so I just developed this sort of criteria outline, and one of the big tenets is helping other people be successful at what they're already doing. So a lot of the companies I've started are around tools to help other people be successful rather than convincing them to do something different. And that's what I did for financial services. I spent 6 years convincing people to come work for me because it was in their best interest. And it wasn't. It was in my best interest. And so I sort of got frustrated with that. And now the companies I create, I really like to try and add value to other people and build something that helps them be successful.
You know, to me, it's first of all to be congratulated because that is the way of being successful, which is has different definitions as well, different parts to it. But it sounds like what I like to say is you're creating the why before anything else.
Yeah, and a lot of what I do is I've got a 10-step program, and the first one is begin with the end in mind. It's a little covey, but the second principle is, it's called with them. What's in it for you? What's in it for me? And if I can figure out how to add value to the other person, the why becomes what's important to that other person. Even if part of it is I want them doing business with me, it's still how do you phrase and spin and position something where it benefits the other person. And it's that why, and it's also that why not. Like, why won't this work? Why won't you do it? Why won't this idea be successful? I'm a big proponent of eliciting the negatives out of people rather than just have them pat you on the head and tell you you've got a great idea. It's like, why won't this work? If I'm going to a big company, why won't you do this? Why won't it be successful? And I think you get a lot more value out of asking why not than just trying to get platitudes on why something will work.
No, I think that's a great point. A lot of prevention there from maybe going the wrong way, and a lot of strengthening of being prepared for what can happen. With respect to that, we talk and deal, and we got a lot of entrepreneurs that watch this. What do you advise them firstly when they are starting up a business? Like you say, go through the why nots about, starting it up, about finding and pitching for money, whether they're at the concept stage, which you've seen, or even trying to move their business forward.
Probably there's a long myriad of things, but there's 3 or 4 I think that are really quick and critical. One is as you find your idea, go to a lot of people and get validation. Not that everybody's like, oh, I'm afraid of sharing the idea. I'm a big proponent of going to people early on that you value their opinion, not your next door neighbor and things like that. So I always build advisory boards around the companies early on.
Right.
And again, I'm going to them saying, why won't this work? And not only to get insight, I'm trying to build legacies of loyalty where they're helping me solve the problem, which ingratiates them more. As you start moving to raising money, I say all the time, everything you need to know about raising money is 3 simple words. And I've got the magic sauce. Now, how you cook it is a different story, but everything you need to know about raising money is capital follows customers. The first question you always get asked, who's your customer? Who's using it? So if you have a dead-on laser focus of how am I going to get customers, even if you're pre-selling customers before you have a product, that helps you cross the chasm on capital. And I don't think people focus enough on that customer acquisition early on, even if it's just a list of 40, 50, like the tech we're launching now, we've got probably 200 brands we've spoken to and showed the tool to that are interested and excited for when we launch. So it makes our capital conversations a lot different because capital follows customers. So out of everything people teach, I think that's one of the most fundamental ones that sometimes gets lost.
It's interesting. It sounds like, if I get this expression right, remember the one about you're too busy, let's say, running the business or working on the business rather than actually doing the business.
Yeah, and I get caught up in that as well. The aspect for me when we started, I said I'm unhirable. I'm really good at business development. I'm really good at opening doors and getting access at high levels and generating interest. That to me is the exciting side. The nuts and bolts of operating the business and doing it is where I tend to get lost. So I have to build teams around me of people that can execute. But I think the antithesis is sometimes, to your point, people get so wrapped up in just doing the business that they're building in a bubble and a cocoon of what a great idea. They're not getting that feedback. And that feedback's important not only for your business model, but also as you move into market, you need people that already know and support you to accelerate your timelines.
Yeah, to perfect sense. You're with respect to that, you've engaged in a lot of startup techs, and I noticed previously we talked about you're not a tech guy, but you've gotten into a lot of tech companies or been involved in a lot of tech companies. How do you recognize like a winner? You kind of touched on it a little bit, both in the product that's offered, which you talked about, and the leadership that's actually executing it, that you actually want to be involved either as an active or passive investor or just as a partner even.
Yeah, and mine's a little different, Mark. I don't get involved in other companies. I don't invest in other companies. I run my own personal incubator, so I start my own companies from scratch.
Right.
So they're my ideas around problems that I've identified that I think are big enough problems that a lot of other people may want solved. And a quick, simple example was, again, I'm going to date myself as being a dinosaur, but in '96, I wanted to write another book, and I wanted to sell it, and I wanted three simple things. I wanted somebody to build a website. I wanted them to process orders for me like an 800 number used to do. And I wanted them to send me checks and mailing labels. I didn't want a bank account. I didn't want to build I don't know how tech works. I know how to speak. And in '96, that did not exist. If you had a website, you had to print out a form, fax it in, call an 800 number.
Right.
So the first company I started, Virtual Sellers, created an e-commerce shopping cart and a merchant account. So people that were selling, we would process their orders, handle all the back end, and send them a check and a mailing label.
So you're basically, sorry to interrupt, you're doing the smart thing. You're finding the pain.
Yeah, everything. People do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. You sell more aspirin than vitamins. It's where are those pain points, and are they a big enough pain point for other people that they can become a business?
Right.
And so each company I've started up through the current one is around solving a pain point for other people that already have a big audience.
Awesome. I've been fortunate, to be an exec in a global leadership development organization, traveled in a lot of places in the world, and I haven't been to Monaco yet, which is really starting to bug me now. But I did love the engagement with people. You said you love dealing with people, talking with people. I like their different backgrounds, different opinions. I mean, I thrived on that. You spoke to me once about how isolation is actually a good thing.
Right.
Can you, and I think you said defined and in the right perspective. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I like throwing out statements that are somewhat obtuse and people take them the wrong way so I can move them to the way I want to think. And I run an event, and
you should be Donald Trump's vice president candidate.
I send him things occasionally on how to position what's going on. Daryl Issa on immigration. I mean, Frank Luntz. There's some people I'm like, hey, say things this way.
Yeah.
But the term isolation is a good thing. When you say that, it's interesting because people invariably go to the negative.
Right.
Oh, about being alone and why. If you're networking, how is isolating good if you're always alone? And I'm like, I didn't say anything about being alone. You took it there because the predisposition in your head.
Right.
And so to me, when you talk about working out, people do isolations on muscles. So Wednesday, I'm isolating on arms, and I'm going to isolate on my legs. Or if you're doing, some type of shooting or skeet shooting, you're isolating on the bullseye. If you've got a target and you're building a company and you say, oh, I do e-commerce. Well, e-commerce is so broad it means nothing.
Right.
If you say I do e-commerce for fashion companies, and in the fashion companies I want to deal with Nordstrom's and Barnes and Noble and Barney's, and in there I want these 4 people because they're the ones that make decisions. Well, that's isolation. That's being effective as a business person by knowing your market and saying, here's exactly what I need to be successful. And so I try and move people from isolation of being alone to isolation about targeting exactly what they want, what they need, who they need to be successful. Because that's, people come to me asking for help all the time. I just got an email today, oh, I need brands in LA. Brands in LA is like saying I need a dentist in Kansas City. There's 1,000 of them. So the more specific you are, the more definitive you can be, the more I believe people can help you. And that's what I mean by isolation is a good thing.
Well, as my Brit friends would say, I think it's brilliant because people do go to the negative immediately. And I was just at a Wall Street Journal summit I was invited to in D.C., and one of the topics was not accepting what's considered, as given all the time, and which is kind of like, you were talking about. And even terms like sales or politics or whatever, you're right. Everybody goes to the negative of what those are all the time,
right,
rather than what they could be. I think that's great advice. So speaking of advice, especially for the up and coming leaders, tell us what you've seen most impacts one's personal and career growth. And it could be relationships. Is it tech knowledge? Is it business savvy? Is it having a large inheritance? What is it?
Again, everything with me is probably 2 or 3 things because I've taught a lot of this for so long. So, and I have a lot of sayings. And one of my sayings is it's not mine. I'm sure it's come from somewhere out of the ether. But experience is the best teacher. Mm-hmm. It's also the slowest. So as an entrepreneur or leader, there are hundreds of books and videos. There's so much access to information of people who can accelerate you in. It's like if you want to be a chef, you're not just going to go putz around in a kitchen until you figure it out when there's so much information about how to cook. And that's what I think people break down a lot is they don't spend enough time on themselves with self-improvement and personal growth and just reading. I read 9 newspapers a day. I've got a cool app called Blinkist that's sort of the Cliff Notes for books. So I can read a book in 15 minutes. And a lot of it is knowledge. So, experience is the best teacher. It's also the slowest.
Yeah.
Second, I believe a personal network is extremely important. And not everybody's good at it.
Right. But
if you learn how to think about a network in terms of adding value to other people, and how can I help somebody before I figure out how they can help me? Mm-hmm. You can build a stronger network and ingratiate yourself. But I also think it's about being very specific and targeted in what you do. If you're in sales, you can really identify markets you want to be in. If you're in IT, if you're not, it's okay. You might need to develop a different kind of support structure. But I think contacts and relationships are important, but they're important in the right context.
Yeah, very, very smart and great advice. These are some personal questions, not too personal, but personal. They're kind of like 1 or 2 word answers, if you will. Do you have a pet?
No, I joke that I don't have any pets or plants at home because I'm not home enough to keep them alive. Well, that's that may be a bad joke, but it's probably true.
No, it's a good move, actually. How about favorite activity or sport?
I sound like a nerd when I say this. One of my favorite activities actually is public speaking in terms of presentations and watching my crutch words and doing planned pauses and left-right brain symmetry and stuff. There's a lot of things I like in public speaking, so I do a lot of that at colleges and universities. For fun, I actually still play soccer. I've played soccer my whole life. I play competitively. However, I realize I must have gotten older, even though I don't think it in my head, because when I tell people, oh, I've got soccer on Monday night, they're, oh, are you playing or coaching? or are you coaching or watching, I guess is what they say. And I go, no, I'm playing. And they sort of look at me quizzically, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still playing. I'm not, coaching or watching on the sidelines.
I know the feeling. I just dislocated my shoulder playing hockey a couple weeks ago, and I have to have surgery on the shoulder. So I know the feeling. Do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
Well, again, Suits that we talked about earlier is interesting. We're somewhat pop culture now. Scorpion I really like, which is Walter O'Brien, a friend of ours locally here in LA. I think they've done a really great job with that. I like smart television, so anything along those lines, genre-wise, I like. From a movie, I don't know that I have a favorite movie. I do find myself constantly watching reruns on TV in the background because I have to have noise.
Yeah, me too.
And it's Armageddon, it's Independence Day, it's some of those that just constantly run on a loop that I'll put in the background and recite word for word every phrase. So I don't know that they're a favorite, but they're ones that I certainly can watch over and over again.
You said you read a lot of books. Do you have a favorite?
A lot of the classic stuff, because those were the ones that influenced me most heavily, and they sound trite, but they're really good as a foundation. So some of the early ones, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Right.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which I've talked to people who've read it 7 or 8 times, still don't really know what the secret is. There's a really unique aspect in Think and Grow Rich of how it really works that just reading the book you don't get unless you really dissect it. And then there's a follow-on book that Napoleon did called The 17 Laws, which is really good. Moving forward into the mid-tiers, the 4 Agreements, things like that. Again, I'm not a hokey-pokey one, but to not take things personally and to always do your best. And people are always like, oh, well, why don't that bother you? I'm like, I don't take it personally. Oh, well, that guy doesn't like you. Okay, I don't like everybody either. It's not a personal thing.
Yeah, we're too sensitive these days. That's a whole other topic. How about finally favorite music and food?
I still listen to 2 types, country and western. And when it's country western, it's even better. So I listen to country and rap. I'm sort of across the space there, not much in between. And food, I look at things the other way. Again, I'm very isolated. So rather than thinking of what my favorite is, I don't eat hot dogs. I don't like green peppers, and I will not eat cottage cheese. Everything outside of there is wide open, and I'm easy, but no hot dogs, no green peppers, no cottage cheese.
Chicken claws in China and kimchi in Korea.
I've done kimchi for breakfast in Korea. I've done little things on the breakfast table in Korea with tentacles. I don't even know what they were. I've had alligator balls in Louisiana. I've had Rocky Mountain oysters in Colorado, rattlesnake. So yeah, I've run the gamut, but I won't do hot dogs, green peppers, or cottage cheese.
All right. On that note, we'll say thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mark.